Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene presents a groundbreaking view of evolution, focusing on the gene as the central unit of selection. His thesis shifts the traditional perspective from organisms as the primary actors in evolution to genes, which he argues are the true drivers of evolutionary processes. Dawkins uses the metaphor of the selfish gene to illustrate how genes perpetuate themselves through generations by influencing the behavior and characteristics of organisms. At its core, Dawkins argues that the primary function of organisms, including humans, is to serve as vehicles for their genes. This perspective flips the usual understanding of biology, why organisms are typically viewed as the focus of evolutionary study. Dawkins insists that it is genes that are in control. Genes, according to this theory, manipulate organisms to maximize their own survival and replication, even when doing so seems to contradict the best interests of the individual organism. Dawkins emphasizes the role of replication and survival as key concepts in evolutionary biology. The selfishness in the title doesn't mean that genes possess any form of conscious will or malice. Rather, it is a metaphor for how genes behave in a way that ensures their continuation over time. The concept of selfishness is used to explain that genes are programmed to do whatever is necessary to ensure their survival, often leading to behaviors in organisms that appear self-serving, but are in fact mechanisms to safeguard genetic survival. Central to Dawkins' theory is the idea of replicators, entities that pass on their structure with high fidelity. The first replicators on Earth, he suggests, gave rise to the complexity of life as we know it today. These replicators became what we now call genes. In their drive to replicate, they use survival machines, bodies like ours, to transport and reproduce themselves. Organisms, then, are just survival machines, crafted by genes to enhance their replication. Dawkins builds on this idea, illustrating how behaviors such as altruism, cooperation, and even parental care can be understood in terms of genetic self-interest. Altruism, a particularly interesting topic in evolutionary biology, is scrutinized by Dawkins. Traditionally, altruistic behavior seems to run counter to the principles of natural selection. Why would one organism help another at a potential cost to itself? Dawkins explains this paradox through the concept of kin selection. The closer the genetic relationship between individuals, the more likely they are to exhibit altruistic behavior toward each other. This is because by helping relatives survive and reproduce, an organism is effectively aiding the survival of shared genes. For instance, helping a sibling or offspring ensures that copies of one's own genes are more likely to be passed on to the next generation. Dawkins also addresses the concept of reciprocal altruism, which goes beyond kin selection. Reciprocal altruism occurs when organisms help each other, with the expectation of being helped in return at a later time. This mutual cooperation benefits both parties and can be seen as another strategy by which genes maximize their chances of survival. Reciprocal altruism can explain many social behaviors, even in species where kin relationships are not the dominant form of interaction. Another intriguing aspect of the selfish gene is Dawkins' explanation of cultural evolution through what he calls memes, akin to genes in biological evolution. are units of cultural information that replicate and spread from one individual to another. Just as genes compete for survival, so do memes compete for dominance. Within a cultural context, memes can include ideas, practices, and beliefs that are transmitted across generations. This analogy suggests that cultural evolution can follow similar rules to biological evolution, with successful memes being the ones that best replicate themselves and spread across a population. Throughout the book, Dawkins doesn't ignore the complexity of human behavior and morality. While he insists that genes are selfish in their drive to survive and replicate, he is careful to explain that this does not necessarily mean that human beings are doomed to selfishness. Dawkins makes it clear that while genes influence behavior, human beings possess the cognitive capacity to act beyond pure genetic interest. Culture, reasoning, and conscious decision-making allow humans to engage in behaviors that may not always align with the selfish imperatives of their genes. Thus, the human capacity for kindness, empathy, and morality exists alongside the genetic tendency towards self-interest. Dawkins' work also brings into focus the importance of cooperation in nature. While the metaphor of selfishness implies competition, Dawkins points out that cooperative behaviors are often strategies employed by genes to improve their survival odds. The intricate dance between competition and cooperation in the natural world is part of the broader mechanism by which evolution operates. From the symbiotic relationships between species to complex social structures in animals, cooperation can be seen as a form of long-term genetic investment. Furthermore, Dawkins takes time to discuss the process of evolution itself, dispelling common misunderstandings. Evolution, he stresses, is not teleological. There is no goal or end point. Genes do not evolve with a particular purpose. Rather, they evolve in response to environmental pressures and opportunities. The outcomes of evolution are the result of natural selection, working on the variability present in a population at any given time. As environments change, different genes and traits may become more or less advantageous, leading to shifts in populations over generations. The selfish gene concludes with reflections on the implications of his theory for understanding not only biology, but also human society. The gene-centered view of evolution has profound implications for how we think about human nature, social organization, and even free will. Dawkins' analysis pushes readers to reconsider what drives behavior, both in animals and humans. It invites reflection on the tension between genetic determinism and human autonomy, and on the extent to which we are shaped by forces beyond our control.